What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Frizzell. Today we're taping in the Citadel office building. Our special guest is Ms. Rashida Phillips, who has recently assumed the position of Director of the American Jazz Museum. Can you tell us a little bit about where you come from?
Absolutely. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and eventually ended up in Chicago for the past 16 years.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, you've mentioned that you played some instruments there in St. Louis, Missouri. Did you grow up with a jazz family? Was jazz in your blood?
Not really. It was me that kind of brought the jazz out in my family, believe it or not. I did a lot of musical theater in high school, so that really brought a love for the jazz idiom to me.
Tell us a couple of musicals that you were.
Yeah, so Little Shop of Horrors. I was one of those doo-wop girls that did that
The Greek
movement.
chorus.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the one that really changed my life was the 1940s Radio Hour, which was a jazz-based musical that really worked with vocalists and sort of the old-time radio shows. And I was a Geneva Lee Brown on that production, who was this big jazz diva.
What high school?
Yeah, John Burroughs High School.
John Burroughs. Is that near, is it George Vashon at all?
No, that's more in the county, so that's in the Ladue area of St. Louis.
I'm a big Donny Hathaway fan. I know that St. Louis, we also have Angela Winbush, Josephine Baker, Billy Davis.
That's right, Catherine Dunham, across on the east side of St. Louis, and certainly Miles Davis has roots on the east side of St. Louis as well, so we like to claim all of those figures.
So did you have a counselor or advisor at high school push you in the direction of jazz, encourage you, or did you kind of take that direction yourself?
I'd say yes and in my good sort of theater training there. We had a fantastic jazz band director who was a drummer himself, and we had an excellent theater leader who was really responsible for our class being really an artistic oriented class in high school.
Tell us a little about Oberlin. You graduated from high school in St. Louis and you went on to Oberlin for undergrad.
That's right. I ended up in Ohio. I'm not sure how I continued to stay there in sort of that area because I think I dreamed of sunnier places, but Oberlin is fantastic because it's one of the first colleges to educate women and educate blacks. So I knew that they had a strong history as well as a world-renowned conservatory. So I was able to do lessons. I did classical voice lessons there as well as sang with the jazz band along with my studies.
Why the switch to the East Coast now? We're going to Rutgers for grad school.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Rutgers has an interesting master's program in jazz history and research. It's the only one in the country with that particular program. And what it did is it allowed me to both be a musician but also understand the history and just the subject area of jazz itself. And most folks that know jazz are either running to New York, New Orleans, or trying to find a space where that music is really thriving.
Now, before we get to Chicago, we talk about Kansas City and New Orleans. Was Kansas City at all in your studies when you were in Ohio and New Jersey?
Well, certainly Mary Lou Williams. I worked in the Mary Lou Williams archives, so there was a lot of work in her paperwork and her sort of ephemera that I got a chance to connect to her. And some of those pieces actually exist at the American Jazz Museum. So much to my pleasure and surprise, when I toured the facility upon coming here, there were some of her artifacts that I actually had a hand on myself.
Now, you come to us from the gateway of the Mid-City, Chi-Town, Chirac, or Chicago, I should say. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in Chicago?
Chicago is a fantastic city. It's really bustling. It's changing a lot. I think the strength of Chicago is that it's really mastering collaboration in a lot of ways that other cities are not able to do it, meaning that a lot of larger institutions and organizations are really turning more towards the neighborhood spaces and connecting with those partnerships, connecting with those partners to really think about serving the communities all across the city of Chicago.
And you mentioned to me off camera that you worked with a lot of students in the education arena in terms of jazz, providing those opportunities, those nonprofit opportunities. What attracted you to Kansas City?
There's something important about coming to your home state. There's something important about coming to the cradle. And my understanding of Kansas City.
Now, had you been here before?
I hadn't been here for about 20 years, and I came here for a Jazz and Heritage Festival featuring Bobby Watson. I actually had a trumpet player friend who was playing in Bobby's group at the time, so I came to support him. He's in New Orleans now. And when I came here, honestly, there was not much, there seemed to be not much happening here in the downtown area. But wow, it's really taken off now, I think, with what the building is going on down there, and just the feeling of all of the people filling the streets is important. So this was a cradle, as I mentioned. This was the place, the Southwest Territories, and all of those bands coming through here, whether it's Count Basie, Ben Webster, Lester Young, you just have all of the sort of rich icons getting rooted and grounded in here and really cutting their teeth here before moving onward, whether that was to the East Coast, New York, or throughout the country.
Okay. We won't talk about the West Coast now. I'm just caught up in jazz right now. So we're in Kansas City. You started in January 6th at the American Jazz Museum. What do you hope to accomplish? What are some things that you're working on as director of the American Jazz Museum, which is an important culture part of our heritage here in Kansas City?
That's right. I think it's a joy to be in the 18th and Vine district. You know, place is important. One thing I learned in Chicago is that, you know, there's place making and then there's place keeping. And so I see myself as a legacy builder and really having that responsibility for looking after an organization like the American Jazz Museum is a rich opportunity because we've got artifacts in there, we've got history in there that's critical to the Americanness of who we are. And so landing here in Kansas City, you know, there's no better place than to be, like I mentioned, in the crater and have the opportunity to uplift this organization and sort of take it to the next level. I think we're lucky and blessed to also be Smithsonian affiliate.
Really?
Because those are sort of the key organizations throughout the country that taxpayers can look to that really hold the assets of what our nation is.
Now, in your press release, you said, I'm excited to work with the board, staff, and community to heighten the status of the American Jazz Museum into a world-renowned premier institution. How do you think you're going to do that?
Well, certainly with the community's help. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people I know who have come through a lot of ups and downs with this organization. But you look at cities like New Orleans, you look at Beale Street and Memphis, you look at sort of these spaces throughout the country where they have a sort of a rich heritage built in these tourism spots. And we've got that, I think, with 18th and Vine. We've also got great organizations there with the Baseball Elite Museum. We've got the Black Archives there, the Mutual Musicians Foundation. So we've got the bones there. We've got the bones, and I think we just need to take it to the next level. And I think doing that with the community, whether that's musicians, whether that's stakeholders across the community, the neighborhood space, it's really important. And I think with the tourism boost that's coming to Kansas City, it's ripe for that timing.
I know you've been here, I don't want to say a short while, I don't want to downplay you being here, your time here. What do you think in terms of economics? Are we supporting our institutions? What are some challenges that you face in your 1 or 2 months here thus far economically?
Right. Well, I do know that this is a sports town, right? And Chicago certainly was a sports town.
Go Chiefs!
Right?
Go
Go Chiefs. It was quite a welcome for me to come here for the Chiefs win. And so sometimes people find themselves split between that in terms of their entertainment and their resources, where they want to put their money, where they want to travel, where they want to come. And I always encourage people to come and support the culture, because who are we without that culture, right? And so I think it's also richly important for all to sort of support all of that. You know, tourism is good because we're good and we understand who we are, you know, here in this city. So we can't expect others to come and celebrate ourselves without us celebrating ourselves too.
And we've talked before about the challenges of starting small businesses. We're in the 18th and Vine Jazz District area. What is your impression in terms of the business community, not only supporting the Jazz Museum, but being a viable, you know, I'm going to the Jazz Museum, then I can go shopping, then I can go eat.
That's right.
Is it the total package? Are we there yet?
I think it's coming along. We've got some passionate business owners, you know, whether they're barbershops around the corner, a couple of restaurants in the district. They're people who are willing and wanting to grow that space more. I think we've got some challenges in terms of parking. Certainly safety has come up, and those are things that we're wanting to address in the city with our councilman and councilwoman. But really thinking of ways to get more people over to that side of the city. And it's not too far from Crossroads. You know, there's a lot happening there in terms of the arts, but we're certainly an extension of the arts too, and people should come that way.
Tell us a couple of projects you're working on right now, if you haven't already.
Yeah, well, we're certainly thinking about Charlie Parker. This is the 100th year centennial celebration of Charlie Parker. The Bird.
Yes.
And we've got that saxophone center in our museum, so we prize that piece as really a wonderful asset for not only us but for the community. And we're thinking of events around Charlie Parker that we can present to the public.
Very, very good. Your vision for the future, I hope, includes coming back and talking to us. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we need to know about Ms. Phillips and the American Jazz Museum?
I say certainly come on down and continue to support. I know some folks feel as if they've come, they've seen it, they're not sure, you know, if they need to come back, but there's always things changing. There are ideas that are bubbling up on the surface. There are things happening in the Blue Room and that vibrant space too. So I encourage people to continue to come down and continue to watch us grow, because we've got a lot of things, good things ahead.
Now, my mom's cousin used to play at the Mutual Musicians which has open night on Fridays and Saturdays. Can you tell us when's the best night to come to the Blue Room?
Ah, gosh, probably the weekends. I mean, we certainly get good crowds through there, but there's some open mic opportunities, some indigo hours. So I'd say go on our website, AmericanJazzMuseum.org, and you can see what we've got happening.
We thank you, Ms. Phillips. We want you to come back maybe when it's summertime and give us some more of that American Jazz Museum energy. My name is Glenn Frizzell. You can check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. And remember, the sky's the limit. Aim for the stars. If you miss, at the very least, you would have landed among the moon. Take care.